Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Texas is proud to sponsor events like the one you're about to see because we love to see Texans get involved in public dialogue and civic engagement.
Hi there, I'm Cassi Pollock, politics reporter for the Texas Tribune. Thank you for tuning in for our conversation on the new members of the Texas legislature as part of the Texas Tribune symposium previewing the 2021 legislative session. I'm joined today by Representative-elects Eddie Morales Jr., Shelby Slawson, and Jacey Jetton. Slawson was recently elected to represent House District 59, which includes Comanche, Coryell, Erath, Hamilton, McCullough, Mills, San Saba, and Somerville counties. Jetton was recently elected to represent House District 26 in Fort Bend County outside of Houston. Morales was recently elected to represent House District 74, which encompasses Eagle Pass and parts of South and West Texas. Thank you all to you three for being here today, and let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, when all three of you ran for office, you didn't expect to be entering the legislature in January amid a pandemic and with the legislature facing such a tough upcoming agenda. Rep-elect Slawson, I want you to answer this question first. What are the one or two top issues that you're planning to push for your district this session, knowing that the menu of items the legislature takes up is likely to be smaller and more focused on redistricting, COVID, and the budget?
Yes, and first, thank you so much for having us today. And you're right, things look tremendously different now across Texas than they did when we kicked off campaigns almost 2 years ago. But Cassie, the more things change, the more things stay the same. And the top priorities are still going to be the top priorities for Texas. The dollars may look different, but the budget is still the number one job that we are sent to Austin to do, is to pass a balanced budget. We also know that redistricting is a must in the next year. So those two priorities haven't changed at all. There will be more difficult decisions for us to make in dealing with that budget when we have a shortfall. We don't know yet exactly what that may be. We heard some hopeful information recently that maybe it won't be as enormous as was originally projected, but we really won't know until January. So those will, of course, be the two overriding priorities for all of us to deal with. I hail from Central Texas, the 8 counties that you listed out. We are a deeply conservative part of the state. We are concerned about law enforcement and public safety and ensuring that all Texans throughout the state are safe and secure in their homes and their businesses on the streets of their city. I don't think that has become a new issue, but it has risen to the forefront of the things that we're concerned about. So aside from that, we are tremendous lovers of our rural public schools. We want to ensure that our students are able to continue learning in the environment that we're dealing with now with the pandemic in front of us. We're concerned about students that may be falling in the cracks, and we want to not overburden our institutions with things like STAR testing that make it even more difficult to ensure that we're just meeting the needs of those kids where they're at right now. So those are some of the priorities that I think will be rising to the top for all of us in the next session. Aside from that, the things that I heard most about from voters as I visited with them on their doors is our Second Amendment rights and pro-life. Those are issues that will continue to rise to the forefront in the part of Texas where I'm at.
Got it. Thank you. Rep-elect Morales, you represent one of the largest state house districts in the state. What are the priorities for your district heading into session, given, again, the backdrop that we're all walking into come January?
Yes, it's actually the largest district in the state of Texas. And so we traveled it extensively before the end of the year last year when we announced in mid-November. And we're very happy to have met with so many folks before the pandemic, and we got a better understanding of what the needs were for House District 74, specifically out there in rural parts of West Texas and including South Central Texas, since I represent Maverick County, Brackettville, and Del Rio, which is in Valverde County. The issues that are important to them are access to broadband. And with programs such as we have through the Ledge Council, a public-private partnership legislative bill that we're trying to finish up and make sure that we introduce. And I understand that that's going to be possibly a priority for the speaker as well, since access to broadband, especially in this pandemic, has risen to the top of one of the needs for all Texans. And so I'm also looking at the possibility of joining and doing pilot projects with SpaceX, the sister city, the sister company, which is Starlink. As you know, SpaceX is owned by Elon Musk. And so they're sending out satellites already out into space that are going to provide broadband internet to the entire world. And we'd like to see if we can do a pilot project with those schools and the community and the citizens out there in West Texas. And so that's one of the priorities. Access to rural healthcare, especially in rural areas, is very important to my constituents. You know, we have 8 counties with 3 physicians or less, and there's 3 counties that have 0 physicians in their community. So we need to develop some sort of funding projects or loan school forgiveness programs where we recruit and make sure that these physicians, physician's assistants, these nurse practitioners end up in communities such as Eagle Pass, Del Rio, Brackettville, Pecos, Reeves County, so that they can provide these valuable and necessary resources to the community. And finally, one of the other priorities is vocational and trade school training opportunities. As you know, Pecos and Reeves County are right now in a downward trend as far as oil and gas and the production of oil and gas in the area. And so there's a lot of people that need jobs and need training to go into a different field. And so I want to work jointly with the state agencies to provide opportunities on vocational and trade school opportunities.
Got it. Thank you. Rep-elect Jetton, Fort Bend County, just outside, or not just outside, nearby Houston. What are the priorities on your plate as you head into session as a freshman member?
Absolutely. Like Rep-elect Slawson mentioned, the budget and the redistricting will be top priorities. But we campaigned during the general election on safer communities and stronger economy, and so we're going to continue to work on that. We have to do everything we can to make sure that we're maintaining order, but also preserving the American dream for future generations. And so we're going to focus on property taxes. That's a big issue here in Fort Bend County. Property ownership is extremely important, and to have anyone taxed out of their home due to out of control tax evaluations going up is a problem. And so we're going to work aggressively to do what we can to fix property tax issues. And then, we had a briefing last week with Commissioner Morath, the TEA, and one of the things that he mentioned on there, one of the quotes was that we cannot allow this public health crisis to turn into a generational education crisis. And so I think it's going to be very important that we make sure that we are doing everything we can to bridge that gap. And so I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I'm determined to make sure that they're going to get the education they need. So that by the time that they graduate high school, they're able to go out and go to college or go into the workforce prepared. And we can't allow this generation of children to fall behind.
Right. On top of all of this, we're going to have a new Speaker of the Texas House, likely Dade Phelan, a Republican from Beaumont. Rep-elect Jetton, I want you to answer this one first. What have your conversations with the presumptive Speaker looked like so far? And if you haven't had any yet, then I guess my question after that would be, what's your impression of how he plans to lead the chamber? Again, I know we're probably going to talk about it a lot during today's conversation, just how challenging of a session we have before us.
Absolutely. So I did have the opportunity to meet, presumptive Speaker-elect Dade Phelan. He came out to the district during the general election during early voting, and had an opportunity to work the polls with him, and he get to know about his family and his business and his time in the state legislature. And that was all before I knew that he was going to run for Speaker. And so we had a good conversation. Afterwards, it was easy to support him. I believe that he is going to be someone that runs the House the way the members would desire. And when I say that, as a former staffer, I've been around the Capitol during a session, and to have a speaker that is going to allow the members to lead the agenda, and to lead the priorities, and to be a speaker that's going to call the balls and strikes instead of putting his thumb on the scale to push his own agenda is going to be really beneficial to us. We were elected to represent our districts. We have our own priorities and our own goals, and we have a responsibility to make sure that we're passing our legislation through committees and onto the House floor, and earning the votes and trust of our fellow members to get that legislation passed. And so I believe that Speaker-elect Phelan is going to do well in this role.
Rep-elect Slawson, do you agree with Rep-elect Jetton's assessment there that Phelan is entering as a first-term speaker, with the kind of giving members, the folks who will end up electing him, likely end up electing him in January, the impression that he's going to largely let the chamber be driven by you all, the members?
Yes, absolutely. I echo what Rep-elect Jetton had to say there. My first encounters with, this is presumptive speaker, that's a little tricky to get out, isn't it? Phelan, we're actually out during campaign season. I had the fortune of not having a general opponent, and so was able to move around and support some other candidates in their races. And along the way, that's where I first got to know presumptive speaker and got to witness the support for other candidates who were out working the ground, and was very impressed with the camaraderie. And I feel very fortunate coming into a session as a freshman to have an opportunity to help decide who will lead the chamber going forward. I have full confidence that we have chosen a member who has the demeanor and the heart for service, and who will absolutely be a fair arbiter of the rules that the House adopts to guide us through the next session. It's the job of the reps out there on the floor to advocate for the people back home. And I think what we all want the most is a speaker who allows us to do that work for the people that we represent. And I look forward to serving with the presumptive speaker.
Thank you. Rep-elect Morales, I want to turn to COVID at the Capitol during session in January. Of course, those conversations over how much access should be given to the public, to the press, to the lobby are still playing out. And we won't really know or have a good idea of what specific protocols or procedures will be in place come January. But what we do know is that House members are able to make their own Capitol office specific guidelines for themselves and staff. So I wanted to ask you, what have conversations looked like with your staff as you've hired them and as you've kind of readied for January, and what will and won't be allowed inside your Capitol office?
Well, we are going to require face masks for everybody that wants to have access to our office. We've also discussed UV lighting equipment that has become available, and we plan on probably acquiring one or two of those. They cover a wide area, and they have all these safety measures in place where they can turn on at night after everyone's gone, and if anyone comes into the office during that time also that way. As you know, we were in orientation this last week. We had I had actually 3 rapid tests performed on me in one week, since we also took photos in front of the Christmas tree and with Santa, and so we were required to do that additional one from what the freshmen undertook during the week. It was only 2, and I thought it was fast. I thought it was efficient. I thought they did a marvelous job. They knew what they were doing, and I think it's just a safety measure that's in place there. And I totally support if we were to do some safety measures like rapid testing during session.
Thank you. I will definitely come back to the rapid testing question in a minute, but Rep-elect Jetton, I wanted to get your take on what conversations with your Capitol staff have looked like, and whether there have been any sorts of guidelines or procedures put into place or arrived at just ahead of session in January.
Absolutely. Our conversations mostly revolve around how we're going to make sure that this next session is open and transparent, and that the people have an opportunity to weigh into what we're doing here in the state legislature. This is going the people's house, and we have to make sure that the people have access to us. And so we're going to, it's hard to tell how things are going to be on January 12th, but assuming that there's still the same issues we're dealing with today, we will have, we'll take proper precautions in the office, including masks for those that feel that they need it. But we'll also make sure that we are available in the district via phone, email, and continuing the virtual options through Zoom or what have you to make sure that we are in contact and accessible during this legislative session.
Thank you. Rep-elect Slawson, I wanted to give you an opportunity to give us the latest on what your Capitol office will and won't allow during session.
Yes, thank you. And we're all looking forward, I think, to hearing more from the committee that has been meeting to try and frame some general recommendations and policies for the Capitol in general. We have just in the last couple of days had the opportunity to select our offices and even have an idea of what the layout might look like in there. The three of us on this panel don't even know where desks may be situated and how traffic may come in and out of our offices. But like Rep-elect Jetton, my number one concern is the accessibility to the constituents and the openness and transparency that is absolutely necessary for people to have confidence in their government. So when you ask what will absolutely be allowed in the office, constituents. We will figure out how to make that work so that people that have sent me to do a job for them have the ability to interact with our office on the things that they need.
Thank you.
Cassi, this is Eddie.
Go ahead, please.
I would like to add with respect to the question on Dade Phelan, as the only Democratic representative elect on board, I'd like to be able to let you all know how accessible Dade Phelan has been with respect to also reaching out to the Democrats, and either through text and telephone calls that he's become accessible to us, and also was the one that started us off during orientation. And so that just tells you his commitment. The video conferences that we have participated with that involve him, he's been very clear at the forefront how many minutes he has or how much time he has available, and how much and what the needs are right after, as far as why he needs to get off of the video conference call, and it's to be with his family. And I think that shows a lot about his commitment and his priorities with respect to his children and his family and work, and how solid he is as far as that being his primary commitment, and then everything else, comes second. But it really shows a lot, and I'm really looking forward to being able to work with the presumptive speaker, Phelan.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Rep-elect Morales. I remember it was the day after the election when Phelan held his presser at the Capitol, and members of the press were actually allowed inside. And he said he hadn't yet released a list of members supporting his speaker's bid yet, but he claimed that he had a supermajority of the GOP caucus and then a majority of the Democratic caucus. So definitely an attempt by him as he was trying to make a bid for speaker to secure a healthy number of both Republicans and Democrats. And in most everyone else's reporting, it's been, his style has reflected that he intends to lead the chamber as bipartisan, member-driven way as possible. And I think all three of you would agree with that assessment at this point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's really quick, I wanted to go back to something that Rep-elect Morales mentioned about freshman orientation last week. I believe you also mentioned it, Rep-elect Slawson, about rapid testing. I wanted to ask, Rep-elect Morales, you said that you would be supportive of such a protocol in place during session, particularly among members. Rep-elect Jetton and Slawson, let's go to you first, Rep-elect Jetton. Do you think that is something that needs to be in place or be considered, just again as these conversations continue to firm up over procedures and protocols next session?
If we're still dealing with this issue in January 12th, then I think that that's something to consider. One of the main things, like I said, the main thing is we need to be accessible to our constituents. And so, I need to do some more research, and I'd like to see more the science behind the potentials for false positives so that we're not unduly, not allowing someone to come into the Capitol that's perfectly healthy. But other than that, the process was fairly easy. Waiting 10 to 15 minutes for or 15 minutes for the results was not an excessive amount of time. And so overall, the process was fine. I just want to make sure that we are allowing healthy people to come into the Capitol to approach their representatives.
Tongue-tied there. Rep-elect Slawson. What are your thoughts on rapid testing at the Capitol for members, or maybe even just the general public during session?
Well, I'll tell you, as a general rule, I will not, for myself, allow the rapid test to be a barrier to access to me from any constituent. Different people have different viewpoints on that. I did utilize the test last week when I entered freshman orientation. It, as a functional matter, wasn't any big deal. It was a little bit interesting to see how it worked. But then I also think, honestly, Cassi, about every morning when my daughters, 12 and 7, go to school, the staff, the teachers who are coming into the schools, the students, we're able to operate our schools in a way that is protecting the health of everyone involved to an incredible and impressive degree. And I don't view myself as being any more essential. I mean, frankly, I'm a politician. I'm probably at the bottom of the essential food chain than those people who are out there on the front lines working for us every day. So my concern is that we use protocols that do keep us all safe. We all know, wash your hands, social distance, don't cough or sneeze on other people. But let's be very mindful and careful about the potential for putting hurdles in between the people to be served and the people who are working for them. So it's hard. It's a hard issue. We'll sort it out. And I think we all are certainly hopeful that vaccines become widely available soon and that we see a different trend line emerging in the very near future with this virus.
Let's turn to an audience question. And Rep-elect Morales, I'm going to ask you this question first. It's from audience member Holly. Her question is, what's the number one issue in resolving the COVID aftermath? I'll just go ahead and specify a little bit. What do you think is the number one policy issue that the legislature needs to be focused on in responding to the pandemic next session?
I think the budget shortfall that we have and how best to address it. Are we going to tap into the rainy day fund? I think if there was ever a time, it's in the middle of a pandemic, that we should carefully consider how much we're going to need from the rainy day fund and how we can make it work. And so I would say the budget.
Rep-elect Jetton, do you agree that the budget is probably the largest issue facing the ledge in the aftermath of the virus, in the midst of the virus?
I think that's going to be one of the most important things we have to work our way through. But in my opinion, the biggest thing is going to be doing everything that we can to unleash this economy. And so that's going to mean looking at our regulations, looking at the things that government unduly has as a barrier to people being able to start businesses, grow their business, bring on new people. We need to do everything we can to get this economy churning the way that it was prior to this pandemic. And I think that's going to be our main goal in recovering.
Rep-elect Slawson, you were nodding your head yes as Rep-elect Jetton was talking. Do you have thoughts?
I do. I mean, I think those things tie together, obviously. We have to reopen an economy and get it kick-started and thriving again in order to adequately address those budget shortfalls out there. Thomas Jefferson has a quote that timid men prefer the calm of despotism to the tumultuous sea of liberty. Well, we all know that Texas is not a state with a heritage of timid men, but brave men and women who made tremendous sacrifices to ensure that our best days are yet to come, that Texas is exceptional, and that we will do everything that we can to ensure that people throughout this state are the captains of their own vessels on that shining sea of liberty. That's what we're going down to Austin to do.
Thank you so much. Well, we are out of time today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you to Rep-elects Morales, Slawson, and Jetton for joining us. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day, and we will hopefully see you in January at the Capitol.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Every day, equipment from CenterPoint Energy brings you power safely. But when something goes wrong, you should know what to do. Sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's an accident. But damaged electric equipment and downed power lines could be life-threatening. Stay away and call CenterPoint Energy immediately. Remember, all electric equipment should be handled only by our trained personnel.
CenterPoint Energy is committed to providing you safe, reliable electric delivery. CenterPoint Energy, always there.